friends, it's Nicole with Herban Austin. If you're like me, you thought it was safe to put a couple plants in the ground because spring's on its way, right? Nope. So Austin, Texas, in addition to most of Central Texas and the plains, are going to be facing one of the biggest Arctic freezes that we've seen since December in 1989. That's not so great for our plants that we just put in the ground. So I want to share with you a couple things that you can do, especially as Southerners who aren't used to that kind of cold. What we can do, just utilizing just easy peasy DIY techniques, recycled materials, just to kind of bolster our plants, protect them against hard freezes and what's ultimately known as to be a killing freeze. So we want to do everything that we can to keep them safe so that we have a beautiful and prosperous spring. Now, in an ideal situation, you have your plant babies in a container like this aloe plant, where you can move them from outdoors indoors tonight so that they have a viable heat source available in addition to any type of air circulating, which will prevent the plant cells from freezing. Young fruit trees are especially susceptible to hard freezes, so you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can to protect the most vulnerable part of the tree, which is going to be where the base of the tree meets the soil. Different ways that you can do this include wrapping it in corrugated cardboard, getting a specialized tree wrap that you can put around the base of the tree, and then also you can mulch all the way up the tree base as well, just to give it a little added protection. This is one of our younger peach trees that's super vulnerable to any high winds and any cold breezes because it's kind of exposed. So what we're going to do is just take basic corrugated cardboard and wrap it around the base of the tree to further protect it against freezing temperatures. One of the cheapest and easiest things that you can do to protect your plants against the frost and freeze is to go through and just water the very base of your plant, being careful not to get any foliage or aerial parts wet, as that can leave them susceptible to freezing temperatures. Now, protecting the plants in your garden can be super simple, especially if it's just an individual plant that you recently put in the ground. You can do what is called putting a cloche over it, or just an individual jar, and it will fit just right over top of your new transplant, ultimately protecting it from any hard freezes and from the frost from hitting its leaves. Now, we're all about reducing, reusing, and recycling here at Herban Austin. So one thing that you can do is make a cloche out of old garbage materials, and the perfect thing is going to be a plastic bottle. So basically what you do in this case is just go ahead and cut this sucker in half. And then bam, you've got two separate cloches that you can use to protect your plants against freezes and also hard frosts. So on the farm, we typically use what's called a frost cloth. This is a durable cloth that will usually kind of skirt right over our crops to keep any frost from settling in on the leaves and ultimately freezing the plant cells inside. But a lot of folks don't have that. So what I recommend is actually breaking out something as simple as one of your bed sheets. If you just did some painting or remodeling in the house, you can go ahead and pull off those drop cloths, and those work just fine as well. So we've got our bed sheet that I use and actually stole from my bedroom at home. But you can use this, no problem, but there's a couple things that you can actually do in a case of a hard freeze to further protect your plants instead of just throwing a sheet over top. So here we have our bachelor button row, in addition to our baby calendula row. And one of the best things you can possibly do is as easy as 2 jugs of water. So I filled both of these up with warm water, and we're going to be putting these kind of close to each of the individual plants before we put down the drop cloths. Now the reason this works so well is because it takes longer for the jug of water to heat up and kind of cool down than it takes for the soil to cool down. So that actually creates a little bit of a heat buffer for the ground around your plants. This is especially good for plants that have been in the ground only for 1 to 2 weeks. And then once we have that, we can go ahead and secure our bed sheet. And a good way that I like to secure it over top is just with a couple of bricks. Doesn't have to be fancy. Now, this is all fine and dandy for just a regular frost. but we're talking single digits here. So you want to do something that's going to add even more protection over your new plants, because I'm telling you, a bed sheet's okay for 1 or 2 nights, but we're talking night after night after night of cold temperature. It can really wreak havoc on the new root growth that you just got in the ground. So one thing you can do is put a plastic layer over top of your bed sheet or over top of your frost cloth. This can be as easy as a cheapy blue tarp. And you want to secure that with just the same bricks that you used for the bed sheet. Much toastier. Now you want to make sure that you don't leave this morning after morning, because it actually collects condensation underneath, and that condensation can freeze and then ultimately kill your plant. So you kind of create a death trap. So just be diligent, keep an eye on your plants, and be sure not to do any pruning, don't do any harvesting, let everything just take care of itself and hunker down. Good luck.